We know India has been a country of diversities, cultures, and kingdoms, where many civilizations came up and vanished, like Maurya, Gupta, and Maratha, which we think back today too. Today, we are going to look at one of the longest ruling dynasties from the world history, which ruled more than 450 years, and look how they expanded their kingdom with naval supremacy and how Cholas became Imperial Cholas. Early Cholas were originated around 300 BC. Today we are not going to talk about them because that's a quite disputed topic. So let's move on. Imperial Cholas. Vijayalaya was the founder of the Imperial Chola dynasty, which was the beginning of the most splendid dynasties in the Indian history. Vijayalaya, possibly a feudatory of the Pallava dynasty, took an opportunity arising out of a conflict between Pandya dynasty and Pallava dynasty in century 850. As these kingdoms became weak till 9th century, he captured Tanjavur from Pandyas and established the imperial line of the medieval Chola dynasty and made it as empire's capital. His son Aditya I destroyed Pallava dynasty and expanded and strengthened the kingdom. After Aditya I and Parantaka I, Rajendra Chola's biggest achievement was Ganga Basin campaign and gained control over Pala and Odisha rulers. After this, he got the title of Ganigaikonda Chola, which means conqueror of the Ganges, which was celebrated with excitement, and he also constructed a new capital as Ganigaikonda Cholapuram. From 1225 Anno Domini, which means AD, it remained as capital for 250 years. Now let's see their overseas conquests. During the reign of Rajaraja Chola I and his successor Rajendra Chola I, Virajendra Chola and Kulatunga Chola I, the Chola armies invaded Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and parts of Southeast Asia like Malaysia, Indonesia, and southern Thailand of the Sri Vijaya Empire. In the 11th century, Rajaraja Chola I launched several naval campaigns that resulted in the capture of Sri Lanka, Maldives, and the Malabar coast. In 1025, Rajendra Chola launched naval raids on ports of Sri Vijaya against the Burmese kingdom of Pegu. A Chola inscription states that he captured 14 places, which have been identified with Palembang, Tambralinga, and Kedha, among others. Second invasion was led by Virajendra Chola, who conquered Kedha in Malaysia of Sri Vijaya in the late 11th century. Chola invasion ultimately failed to install direct administration over Sri Vijaya, since the invasion was short and only meant to plunder the wealth of Sri Vijaya. However, this invasion gravely weakened the Sri Vijayan hegemony and enabled the formation of regional kingdoms. There were huge consequences in trade. Tamil traders encroached on the Sri Vijayan realm, traditionally controlled by Malay traders and the Tamil guilds. Influence increased on the Malay Peninsula and north coast of Sumatra. Let's see why they were called as Imperial Cholas. Cholas believed in collecting annual taxes over the kingdoms they ruled. A classic instance is Sri Vijaya's king pays tribute to the Chola navy for protecting sea route and their port. This was the typical nature of Chola kingdom, where they controlled the economy of those countries they controlled. This is the very nature of imperialism. Hence, Imperial Cholas. The word imperial derives from emperor or empress, which denotes a ruler who holds a sway over vast territories and or wields considerable influence over many other kingdoms. They had a kingdom over today's Malaysia, Andaman, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Philippines. The Chola Empire is also called as Civilizational Golden Age because in this time massive infrastructures, temples, ornaments, statues, and fine sculptures came up. Due to the regional expansion, massive canals were made near Kaveri Basin, namely Uyakkondan and Rajendran Vayakkal, which still exist at today's date. Apart from canals, massive water tanks were also made, in which most important stands for 16-mile long in Ganigaikonda Cholapuram, named as Solangangam, which also stands as liquid pillar of victory. Looking at the temples before Rajaraja Chola, kings also made temples, but the brilliance and precision of architecture increases in the time of Rajaraja Chola I and Rajendra Chola I, which symbolizes the prosperity of Cholas. The Great Living Chola Temple is a UNESCO World Heritage Site designation for a group of Chola dynasty era Hindu temples in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu. This site includes three great 11th and 12th century temples, namely the Brihadeshwara temple at Tanjavur, the Brihadeshwara temple at Ganigaikonda Cholapuram, which his son Rajendra Chola built with the same name, and the last but not the least, the Airavateshwara temple at Darasuram. Brihadeshwara temple stands as the most iconic temple for today's engineers and people because it stands 60 meters high and without any tilt. The Cholas were Shaiva, which means they worshipped Lord Shiva. This temple has one of the most biggest shivling located in it. The temple has a sanctum without any tilt, and the crown which is placed over the sanctum weighs 80 tons. Here we can also see the world famous sculpture of Nataraj, who was also known as dance god. These temples were perfect example of Dravida style architecture. If we talk about sculptures, we can't miss Bhog Shakti and Subramanyam. These temples were also centers of economic activities. Cholas annexed several states like Musangi, Keda, Kalinga, Chalukya and more like these. So by this way, Cholas were the supremes of that time. Before going, I want to discuss a thing with you guys. Historians think China may have been the first civilization to develop a magnetic compass used for navigation. Comment down below what do you think, how the Indian invaders like Cholas conquered beyond India or Tamil Nadu through sea routes without compass and map. Also comment down below what do you think, did they have these technologies developed before Chinese or Europeans, or they had some other techniques. I'm a